Hello there. In this video I'm going to show you how you can create a bracelet, add your name to it, and also add a Celtic knot pattern. Now I'm going to use alphabet Harrington fonts to add the name Giselle to the bracelet, so I'll be appending those objects to my bracelet. And I'm also going to use a Celtic knot pattern, which I'm going to append from this particular file, which is available from Fluid Designer for 3D printing. So essentially in the bracelets folder, my default bracelet for all UK sizes is this object here, which you'll find on the free version of Fluid Designer. So I'm just going to drag and drop that object onto the workspace, and what we've got there is a default bracelet which has got an inner diameter of 65mm, and it's got a cross section of 1mm, so it's 1mm thick and 10mm deep. Now I'm going to make a bracelet that's 60mm in cross section, so what I need to do is I need to remove the bevel object, and I need to just hide that particular inner diameter. And I'm going to create an inner diameter of 60mm, so I can just switch on this particular object here. Now that's just a NURB circle with an inner diameter of 60mm, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a cross section to that, and I'm going to apply a cross section of not 1x10 but 2mm by 1mm. So when I zoom in, you can see that we've got a depth of 1mm and a thickness there of 2mm. Now I want to create two of these, so if I just go to view and front view and just zoom in, and I'm going to move this object down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5mm, and I'm going to go to Tools, Object Tools, and to duplicate the object, and I'm just going to place it 5mm above the x-axis. So we've got two copies of that, and we can see that in the outliner panel here. Now if you highlight the second object and hold down the shift key on the keyboard and then highlight the first one and go to Tools, Object Tools and Join, you'll end up with just one object in the outliner panel. We've just joined those two rings together now. So they're going to be the outer surface of our final bracelet. And so the next thing I want to do is I'm going to put a pattern now between these. So I'm going to use the Celtic knot pattern, and I need to append. So if I go to File and Append, and if I just go up through the menu system until I get to the Groups folder, this is the basic folder in Fluid Designer for 3D printing where you can find all your patterns. I then need to go to the Bracelets folder, and I'm looking for a Celtic knot bracelet 4-leaf. So it's this object here, and I need to open up the object file. So I'm going to select Celtic knot bracelet 4-leaf. Now this one's at 65mm, but that's alright, we'll change that. So I'm going to append that from the library. So you can see it brings that object into my workspace. So we've got our two rings here, but this particular Celtic knot pattern at the moment has got an inner diameter of, well, it's saying 65mm, so we need to change the inner diameter. So if we just open up the panel here, if we go to the Modifiers panel, you can see there's an option here to set the bracelet size, and at the moment it's set to inner diameter, which is the default size. So I want to scroll down here, and I want to select the same size as my two rings at the moment, which is 60mm. So we want an inner diameter of 60mm. So you can see that that adjusts my Celtic knot pattern now. So I can, my ring here of 60mm, I can actually just highlight that from view now, because we've modified our inner diameter. Now you do need to be a little bit careful here about the positioning of everything. So you can see it's not quite in the right position at the moment. I want to sort of center this, Now what it is that this thickness is 2 millimeters. The thickness of my Celtic knot, if we just have a look over here, if I just highlight it, you'll see it's got a cross section of 1 millimeter. So my rings have got a thickness of 2 millimeters here, but my Celtic knot is only 1 millimeter. So I need to modify the positioning of it so that it fits in the center of my 2 rings here. So if I just go to view and top view, and if I press the tab key on the keyboard and just zoom in, if I press the A key on the keyboard to highlight all of those control points, essentially what I want to do is to move this down 0.5 millimeter. Well, at the moment the Y value is about 0.5 millimeters there. So if I just enter in a value of 0 there, that's just effectively moved the object down 0.5 millimeter. And if I press the tab key and come out of edit mode now, you can see the positioning of my Celtic knot has changed, and it's now nicely centered running around the middle of those 2 rings. Now I'm going to want to add in the name Giselle here, so I won't extend the size of this Celtic knot just yet. I mean, we can do so just by changing the count over here. You can see I can increase the number of Celtic knots. We won't do that just at the moment. We'll get the name Giselle in here before we make any final fine tuning. So I'm just going to go to view and top view, and to add in the text Giselle, the name that we're going to add to this bracelet, I'm going to go to File and Append, and just go up through the menu system until you get to the Groups folder, and then look for your font, and I'm going to use this Alphabet Harrington font, and I'm going to start off with a capital letter G, and we always append objects, so it's the Harrington font G object that I need to append, and I'll just move that across to the left a little bit. Now I'm going to go to File and Append, and I want the next letter in my name now, which is I'm going to use the lowercase I, and it's always the object, so it's Harrington font I, and just move that across. Now you do need to make sure that these are just overlapping, or I prefer them to do anyway. So File and Append for the next letter, so G and I, and I want a couple of S's now, so Harrington font S, object, Harrington font S, append it from the library, and I'm just going to reposition that there and move it down perhaps a little bit, and I just append a second copy of the S, and I'll just move that across there. Now you just want some overlap here, but the positioning of this you can decide yourself. Now I want an E, so File and Append, so Harrington font E, object, and append that from the library, and I just need to zoom in there. So there's my E, just move that down a little bit, and I want an L now. So File and Append, Harrington font L, object, Harrington font L, append that from the library. Now the L and the G, it's probably a good idea to try and line them up so that the top and the bottom are roughly the same. Now what I want to do is to merge all of that name into one file. So at the moment you can see over here in the outliner panel we've got several objects. If I hold down the Shift key, select the E, select the S, select the S, select the, oops, I didn't get that S, yep, select the I, and select the G, and just go to Tools, Object Tools, and Join. They'll all merge, and the only file that we've got now, the only object we've got now is the Harrington font G object. And I'm just going to go to Tools, Object Tools, and set the origin to the geometry of that object. And now what I need to do is put it onto my bracelet. Well, the first thing I want to do is to rotate it about the X-axis, so I can press R on the keyboard, X and 90 degrees. Now I know that when objects like this are wrapped around curves, which is what we're going to need to do, they do in fact flip back to front. So what I want to do is I also want to rotate this about the z-axis 180 degrees. So if I go RZ 180, now my text is now back to front as I'm looking at it at the moment, but I can assure you that when we wrap this around the curve, it will switch back again. So with the Giselle object highlighted in the properties panel, if I go to add modifier, I want to add a curve modifier, and so this object is going to be the 60 millimeter inner diameter of this bracelet. So I'm just scrolling down until I get to 60 millimeter object. So it's the same object that we've used for the rest of the bracelet. So inner diameter 60 millimeters, and as you can see, it's turned the name around, but it's not quite in the right place now. So we just need to fiddle about with this a little bit. And so if I just go to view and view it from the front, if I press the tab key on the keyboard to go into edit mode and just highlight the whole of this object by pressing the A key on the keyboard, I'm not quite sure whether I need to move it to the left or the right. I think probably move it to the left, so I'll just move it a couple of places and then just press the tab key, and let's just see whether it's appearing. Yeah, so it's moving into that gap now. So I need to move it a little bit more. So view and from the front again. So I'll press the tab key and I'll just move it one more unit to the left there. Now I'm just going to leave a little bit of an overlap there. Now you can see that this is still, it's not fitting quite right there. And also the thickness of my Giselle name is different from my Celtic knot pattern. The Celtic knot pattern, remember, if I go back to the outliner, to the properties window, was a cross-section diameter 1. So I'm actually going to change my Giselle name to the same bevel object. So I need to scroll down until I get cross-section diameter 1, which is a circular shape rather than these rectangular cross sections which are listed at the moment. So that's the object that the Celtic knot is. So if I select that, you can see that's thinned out the Giselle name there, but it's still not quite in the right position. So if I just go to view and top, essentially what we need to do, well, okay, my centering here is not correct at the moment here. So if I actually go to tools, object tools, if I set the origin to the cursor, that's the first thing I want to do. And then if I press the tab key on the keyboard, you can see what the position of my Giselle name is there. So if I just go to view and top view, so if I just move it up 1 millimeter, let's see where that ends up. Now you can see that's much better position, but it's not quite in the center. So if I just go to view and top view again and just press the tab key to go into edit mode. So what I want to do really is this needs to be in line with the x-axis. Now the best way to do it is over here. Now I know that that green arrow is normally the y-axis, but remember that we've had to rotate this Giselle about the x-axis, so these x, y and z's don't quite correspond here. The value I need to change is this z value, and you can see that if I just move that, you can see the z value changing. What I want is a z value here of 0, so that puts the object in line with the x-axis. So if I press the tab key now, you'll see that the name Giselle is in the center or position now of my bracelet in the same way that the Celtic knot is. What else do we want to do? Well, if we just view this from the front now, you can see that the name Giselle is a little bit too big. So we can adjust that by using scaling. So if I press S on the keyboard and just move the mouse and scale my Giselle down there until it's just fitting in. Now whenever you scale in Fluid Designer, when you scale curves, always do Control A and apply the scale. And if I just move in there, so I could fine tune this. I probably need to switch off the snap and just move it down slightly. That's not doing it, so I could just scale it a little bit more. So I've just pressed S on the keyboard to scale it a little bit more, and I'm just positioning it there. That's okay, I think. So if I do Control A and apply that scale, and I'll just switch my snap back on. Okay, so I've got my Giselle. I probably want to adjust it again, just move it a little bit to the right. So if I just go to View and Front, if I go to the Tab key again, now you need to move it in the opposite direction, so I'll just move it a couple of millimeters to the left. That's effectively moving it to the right in the real world, because remember, things are a bit back to front. Okay, so I've got a gap there between Giselle and the Celtic knot pattern. So now if I select the Celtic knot pattern and just open up my properties window here, whoops, can't quite get it. What I need to do is go to Modifiers, and I just need to increase the count. And there we are. Now that's okay. Yeah. Now if you wanted to fine tune this a little bit more, you can change the relative offset, so I could perhaps change that down to 0.88. That's probably created too big a gap there, so I could do 0.89. That's probably still not right, so if I do 896, so as you can see, you can fine tune the gap there and make it even on both sides. Okay, so there's my pattern now. Now looking at this, I can see that the Celtic knot pattern, when I move it, it's possibly just sticking out very slightly from the top there. So perhaps what I should do is to scale that down a little bit as well. So if I go to View and Front, so I've got the Celtic knot pattern highlighted. If I just press S on the keyboard and just scale the Celtic knot pattern down a little, no, that's too far. I might need to switch off the snap here. I'll just let me just switch off the snap so I can scale this better. So if I just press S on the keyboard and just scale that down, just want the Celtic knot pattern just touching those rims, and yeah, that's looking better actually. So if I do Control A and apply the scale, what I need to do now that I've scaled it, I do need to add a couple of more counts into the pattern here just to fill it out. I can probably set that back to 0.9 again as well. Okay, now I'll just increase that to 0.91. Yeah, so that just gives an even spread of the pattern. Okay, so I think I'm pretty much there now. Now, what we've got to remember in Fluid Designer for 3D printing is never go to File and Save, always use Save As. So I'm going to go to File and Save As, because otherwise you'll delete the template files on your system. So I'm going to go to Desktop, and I'm going to give this the name 4-leaf Celtic knot bracelet and save that as a Blender file. Okay, so I would always recommend that you keep your objects in curve format when you save them as Blender files, and you only change them to meshes at the very last second when you want to create your STL file. Because one of the nice things about still having this as a curve is that if we actually wanted to, if I just go to View and Top View, if I wanted to, I could actually change this from a circular bracelet to a square bracelet. So if I press the first of all, if I highlight the inner diameter 60 millimeters, that's the curve that these objects are being wrapped around. If I highlight that, if I press the tab key on the keyboard to go into edit mode, you can see it's highlighting that. I just need to press A to select all of that curve. So the name Giselle and the bracelet itself is all being wrapped around this. If I wanted to change this into a square bracelet, I could just click the right mouse button, and if I hit subdivide, notice what happens. I change my round bracelet into a square bracelet. Now clearly I do need to add a little bit more pattern here, but that's easy enough. So there's a really neat way of quickly changing this bracelet into a square bracelet of 60 millimeters. Now I don't actually want to do that, so I'll just do Control Z and Control Z to undo that. What I want to do is to save this as a round bracelet. So if I highlight Giselle first of all and go to Tools, Object Tools and convert that to a mesh. If I highlight the Celtic knot and go to Tools, Object Tools and convert that to a mesh, and then if I highlight the rim of the bracelet and go to Tools, Object Tools and convert that to a mesh, all I now need to do is hold down the Shift key, highlight the Celtic knot, highlight Giselle and go to Tools, Object Tools and join all of those three objects together. And just double check that it's all joined by just moving it, and you can see it's all joined there. Now try and remember to not go to File and Save once you've changed this to a mesh. Try and remember to keep your objects as curves, because if you decide at a later date you want to resize this, if you want to change it to a square bracelet, you will be able to do so more easily with curves. So what we need to do with this object is to export it, and I'm going to export it as an STL file to the desktop. So I'm going to save it as a 4-leaf Celtic knot bracelet as an STL file. And the only thing to do with this STL file then is to go to NetFab Basic, run it through NetFab Basic, repair it. There will be some issues with this because of the way that we've constructed it, but I can be 99.9% certain, 99% certain I should say, that NetFab Basic will repair this mesh. So if I just go to NetFab, and if I go to Project and Open, and just go to the desktop and open the 4-leaf Celtic knot bracelet, we'll just go through this procedure. We will get some error message here, I'm pretty sure. Oh, no, we haven't actually. Now, normally I would expect that you will get some sort of error message, so I would always advise that you do run through the repair procedure in NetFab Basic. We've been fairly lucky, I think, with this one. It's quite unusual to get all zeros here, but I would still run automatic repair, whatever. Just run it through the repair procedure anyway. And just let NetFab do that, and we just click update. We've still not got any problems, which we shouldn't do, and just apply the repair and remove the old part. Now the only thing to be wary of here is that our triangle size, if we look down here, it's more than 1 million triangles. So if you are printing at somewhere like Shapeways, they might not like that. So it just depends on where you're printing. The other thing to mention is that if you wanted to improve the quality of the Celtic knot, you could do so in Fluid Designer. A couple of ways. Let me just go back to Fluid Design. A couple of ways of doing that. If I just go to File, Open Recent, so that I go back to my curve object, one of the things that we could have done with the Celtic knot is if you press the tab key and go into edit mode, and with the Celtic knot highlighted, if you click the right mouse button and subdivide it, you'll create more control points. and if you hit the W key on the keyboard and smooth it out, and W and smooth, that will increase the face count for the Celtic knot and make it much smoother. But again, you do need to be aware of the fact that that might take you quite high up in the face count there. So we say just depends a little bit on where you're going to print this and the sort of print quality that you want. Okay, so I think that's probably it for this video. Good luck in producing yours. Thank you.